Why did it have to end this way? I want more.
Hey, check it out, it's Jan, one third of MediaShinobi, and I'm gonna be reviewing The Legend of Korra, Book 4, Episode 2, entitled Korra Alone. So before I begin with this review, I just want to mention any and all instances that I thought were interesting enough to mention. First of all, I laughed my ass off when I saw Aang's goofy ass grin because that was like what? Like 5 seconds? But it managed to make me laugh a lot more than I should have. Secondly, I thought it was actually quite interesting to see that Korra was only able to write to Asami halfway through the episode as opposed to Mako and Bolin, and according to Korra, she stated that Mako and Bolin would be unable to understand. For the most part, I get it. Asami, in comparison to pretty much every other character in The Legend of Korra, you know, minus the older generation, is arguably the most emotionally mature. It makes sense that Korra would confide in Asami simply because they could relate to each other to some extent. And the last thing to mention is the fact that we finally get to see Toph. Now, for the sake of laughs, I thought it would have been much funnier if they decided to end the episode with Korra saying Toph, and that's it. Nothing else. Let the episode end and let the credits roll, because that's just such a perfect opportunity to troll, and who wouldn't take that opportunity? Now, I might be considered sadistic for this, because as much as I love Toph and I want to see her as fast as possible, if I was in the creator's position, I would have stopped the episode there. Nope, let the episode end there and make them wait until the next episode. Now to actually get into the review itself, I thought this episode was pretty solid. I thought it was pretty good. And for those of you who have seen my last video, I did express my concerns about how this episode would play out. Because, again, to reiterate, to shove 3 years worth of a roller coaster, really, for Korra, because she definitely had her ups and downs within this episode, into 20 to 30 minutes, that's a pretty difficult job to do. And for the most part, like I said, it was done pretty well. My only main... I'll use the word nitpick for lack of a better word, but my only nitpick with this episode is the fact that it didn't hit me as hard as I thought it would emotionally. To further elaborate, there was a lot of things in this episode that I definitely liked, but I felt like they could have expanded on a lot more in order to increase the amount of emotional impact, at least for me. And I'll use the first half as an example, where Korra is trying to regain her ability to walk. And I'm speaking as a person who is currently taking care of a family member who has recently lost his ability to walk. And he's trying to regain that back. And for the sake of anonymity and the fact that it is a very personal thing to talk about, I'll keep it at that. But I understand what it's like for a person to be in that position, because not only is it a very difficult time for that person, him or herself, but it's also difficult for that person and who he or she surrounds herself with, more specifically the loved ones. And when I was watching this episode, I definitely did feel something. It did remind me of what I'm currently going through, but I was expecting kind of a slap in the face of raw emotion. And what I got with this episode was just kind of like a pinch. Don't get me wrong, I understand the intentions of why the episode was structured the way it was presented out to be. It's basically episode 1, but it was a series of highlights that happened within the last 3 years that involves Korra to whatever extent that may be. And it's basically to implement all of that back into the current timeline, which is basically the end of that episode where she meets Toph. So for that purpose alone, I get it, but I felt like I could have taken a lot more from this episode if it was done a little bit differently. As for the second half of this episode, more specifically, I'll focus on the end where we finally get to see Toph. I'm interested to see how she's going to be utilized for this book. Most likely, Toph is going to serve her role as kind of an additional source of wisdom, just like how Iroh functioned during Avatar The Last Airbender and the few cameos that he made during The Legend of Korra. It's interesting to compare and contrast with when Toph was first introduced to Aang in the swamp, coincidentally speaking, but as an illusion. That purpose was simply to tell Aang this is going to be your new earthbending teacher. For Korra, she already knows all 4 elements particularly well. The fact that Toph, of all people, is going to be giving advice to Korra, assuming that I am right, that they're going to go with that route, is a lot more practical than what people may give it credit for, because in terms of personalities, they're very similar, especially in comparison to when Toph was first introduced to Aang. They were polar opposites, not only in terms of personality, but element as well. So it was very difficult for Toph to teach Aang. And, you know, I forgot what episode it was, but the point is that Toph had to learn how to approach Aang with a more gentle way of teaching. So if we were to take that in addition with the fact that now she's older and wiser, and put that together, Toph giving advice to Korra is going to go a lot more smoothly than what we once previously thought. So we're definitely going to see more interaction between Korra and Toph. Hopefully in the next incoming episodes and not just the next episode, because I want to see Toph stick around a lot longer than that. Hopefully until the end of the book. I look forward to seeing her personality back in action, because granted, she's older, so she's probably calmed down a little bit, but there's still that spunk in her. In terms of theories, I already repeated myself to death on previous videos, so I'm not going to bother mentioning it. That pretty much wraps up my thoughts for the entirety of this episode. I surprisingly had a lot more to say than I thought I would, but hey, that's just what happens. If you guys like the video, like the video. If you guys dislike it, completely understand. No hard feelings. Comment down in the comments section down below. I just got interrupted by a train. I would love to hear what you guys are thinking as of right now. Any, things that popped out in your mind, your theories, what you guys thought about my theories. I'm also open to constructive criticism, so if there's anything in the video I did that you guys didn't like and I could fix, I'm all ears. Consider, subscribing. We try to pump out this content as, consistently as possible. I would also like to thank Chris for taking some time out of his schedule to film that little bit at the very beginning. It's been a while for you guys since you guys saw, Chris. And it's still hard for us to film together. We're probably going to be separate for the next couple of weeks, months possibly. So, hope you guys enjoyed your daily dose of Chris. Other than that, that pretty much wraps up this video. I'm not going to draw this out any further. So this is Jan, 1/3 of MediaShinobi, signing out, and I'll see you in the next video.